The total number of votes cast in favour of leave was 17,410,700.
The victory for real people. A victory for ordinary people. A victory for decent people.
I love this country and I feel honoured to have served it. And I will do everything I can in future to help this great country succeed.
A huge day for the UK. We are heading out of the European Union. Nigel Farage claims victory. The Prime Minister loses his job. The markets are in some chaos. Is that just a passing phase, or does it mean all the dire warnings are being proved correct? Is Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, in trouble for failing to persuade Labour voters? How do we actually leave the EU? Is it true it takes at least 2 years? And Scotland was told, don't leave the UK or you'll be forced out of the EU. The Scots stayed in, and now England has taken them out. We love your thoughts on the last 24 hours in the UK. To remember a bigger news day. Our phone number is 0500 288 291. Calls are free from most landlines. As always, you can email vine@bbc.co.uk, and you can find me on Twitter and follow me there, or message me, plus there's Facebook and the Royal Mail. But let's rush to the newsroom first and hear the very latest from Claire Rilekes.
Thanks, Jeremy. David Cameron says he'll step down as Prime Minister after the UK voted to leave the European Union. Nearly 52% of the country said they wanted to sever ties with Brussels. From Westminster, Sean Curran reports.
David Cameron has often been called a lucky politician, but the Prime Minister has lost the biggest political gamble of his career. He called a referendum on the UK's membership of the European Union, and the voters rejected his arguments in favour of Remain. In the wake of the defeat, Mr Cameron appeared in Downing Street with his wife Samantha beside him and confirmed that he would step down as Prime Minister by October. With his voice breaking, David Cameron said he loved this country and felt honoured to have served it.
The former Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, was a leading Brexit campaigner. At a news conference in the past hour, he paid tribute to Mr Cameron, but said the British people had chosen to take back control.
We can find our voice in the world again. A voice that is commensurate with the 5th biggest economy on earth. Powerful, liberal, humane, an extraordinary force for good in the world.
The referendum revealed a deeply divided country. Scotland, London and Northern Ireland voted in favour of staying in the EU, while Wales, the Midlands and Northern England chose to leave. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said she deeply regretted the decision, and another Scottish independence referendum was now highly likely.
It is a significant and material change in circumstances, and it is therefore a statement of the obvious that the option of a second referendum must be on the table, and it is on the table.
Leaders of the European Union have told Britain to start negotiations to quit as soon as possible. The London stock market has plunged as a result of the vote, and the pound fell to its lowest level since 1985. That's the BBC News at 3 minutes past 12. Our next at 1.
Well, that was definitely a news bulletin. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's the Jeremy Vine Show. Guess it's been a long night for both of us. What do you make of what happened overnight? We're going to talk to Nigel Farage first. The UKIP leader joins us. I guess I should say congratulations.
Yes, or happy Independence Day, I suppose, because that's what it is. We've broken free from a failing European political union. We're going to be a free country once again, and I couldn't be happier.
You may have detected some nervousness today as people wake up to this reality and they are just not sure what it means.
Well, don't be nervous. I mean, you'll hear scare stories about the stock markets and the currency markets, but actually what you're seeing are markets pinging around with hot speculative money. Nothing to worry about there. And in terms of our future, look, we will go into a negotiating not just with the European Union, but now we've got the chance to do the same thing with the rest of the world. And we can finish up, 18 months, 2 years down the line, with a far stronger reset the trading relationships around the world, this is going to be really good for our country. Celebrate it.
Are you not at all concerned that the other European countries will get together and try to shaft us in revenge?
Well, they can try to. I've no doubt we'll. I mean, next week in Brussels there is a summit of all the leaders, and there's an emergency meeting of the European Parliament, and I've no doubt we'll hear some tough talk from unelected people like Mr. Juncker. But the reality is this: there is a general election in Germany next year, and already the workers' representatives in the German car industry have said to Mrs. Merkel, for goodness sake, conclude a free trade deal and do it as quickly as possible. Because you see, Jeremy, if they get tough with us, effectively they'll be hurting themselves. They'll be risking hundreds of thousands of jobs in the German car industry. So economic pragmatism, sense says we come to a sensible deal.
And lastly, I know you've had no sleep at all in the last 24 hours, but you are the leader of the UK Independence Party, and I guess you no longer have a job. Is that right? By definition.
I've got three things to do. Firstly, I lead the biggest group of British MEPs in Brussels. We've got to watch this renegotiation and watch this process. Secondly, we must stay strong in the UK to make sure the government actually carries out the will of the 17 million people that voted for us. And thirdly, who's to say UKIP may have a great future, particularly amongst Labour voters.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed. Bizarrely, with Mr. Farage, who we just spoke to, conceding defeat, and then he unconceded, and the results came in, and it was clear we are going to be out of the EU. A couple of things to tell you quickly: that seems to be some kind of move on Jeremy Corbyn inside the Labour Party, and secondly, Nicola Sturgeon of the SNP has spoken, and she's apparently talking to the Mayor of London about options for somehow removing themselves, London and Scotland, from this decision. But to Chris Mason first, political correspondent, and the big news about David Cameron. Let's start there. We were told he was lucky, and he hasn't been.
Right, exactly, Jeremy. Absolutely extraordinary 12 or 14 hours. A giant brick has been dropped into the political pond, and ripples, nay waves, are now racing across it. So hour after hour after hour we've had a new development. Just in the last few minutes we hear of a motion of no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn being issued. A few hours before that, as you say, that statement from the Prime Minister. Just a year ago, the guy who managed to win a parliamentary majority against the odds, 12 months on, as a result of a policy that he had in that manifesto, he is now effectively political toast, will be gone by the autumn.
So does that mean George Osborne is gone as well?
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, you speak to Conservative MPs, particularly those on the Leave side of the argument, and there was a lot of them, and they felt that George Osborne overreached himself in the arguments that he made during the referendum campaign. But let me put it more bluntly, they simply didn't believe the stuff that the Treasury was churning out about what would happen if we were to leave. Now, of course, we will find out, won't we, in the coming weeks, months and years, whether anything that the Treasury said in the campaign actually adds up to anything. But regardless of that, politically, George Osborne is damaged goods in the eyes of many Conservative MPs right now, and that matters because they are the first electorate in deciding who our next Prime Minister is. So Conservative MPs will decide who the two candidates will be amongst their peers, amongst other Conservative MPs, who will then go out to the Conservative membership in the country, and they will then have a vote from the two final people in the runoff to decide who our next Prime Minister will be. So the views within the Conservative Party on those senior figures in the party really matter now, because they'll decide who our new Prime Minister is by the autumn.
Well, it may be that Boris Johnson did something politically brave. He put himself out on a limb knowing that if he lost he'd lose everything. He's won. Is there anything that can stop him becoming Prime Minister?
The one thing that could potentially stop him is if there's enough people within the Conservative Party at Westminster to stop him making that final runoff. The assumption at Westminster, and let's say this is another day where Westminster assumptions have taken one hell of a whack, but the assumption at Westminster is if he gets into the final two, into the runoff, Conservative members, ordinary rank and file members of the party, are likely to back him. I'll tell you what's really striking though, Jeremy. I spent a few hours this morning stood outside Boris Johnson's house in Islington in North London, and when he eventually emerged to an absolute scrum of reporters, everything and everyone was drowned out by a chorus of boos of people who had gathered outside his house. Now, let's be fair to him. Islington in North London, a bastion of Remain votes, he is a figurehead for Leave, so perhaps you might expect that, but it tells a broader story, and the story is this: referendums by their definition divide, particularly when the result is as relatively close as this is, and whoever is our next Prime Minister has to unite, has to be seen to be a figure for the whole of the UK, and whoever that figure is, whether it's Boris Johnson or someone else, they've got one heck of a job to do. And those boos, that chorus of noise as he stepped out of his front door this morning, illustrated that perfectly.
Thank you very much.